All right, Dalton, checking in at number 6 of our top 10 corners in the country. And the only transfer on our list is Jabbar Muhammad, who's transferring for the second time in 3 years, basically, going from Oklahoma State to Washington last year and now going from Washington to Oregon this upcoming season. But what makes him such a coveted player, honestly, Dalton, in the transfer portal?
I'll tell you what, he's a really entertaining player too, and that's because he's always hunting the football, right? He does anything he can in coverage to get his hands on the football. He must really want to play receiver or something because he loves the ball. He does. But you go, a 78.7 coverage grade last season. And over the last 2 years, 31 forced incompletions, which is second in the country behind Quinyon Mitchell, who over the last 2 years was the best corner in the country. But that number leads the Power Five. And I think, again, two things stand out for me. For as entertaining as it is, but he's also productive. He comes up big on the football and in big moments. His last 5 games last year, Max, you're talking about a huge Oregon State game in the pouring rain, a rival game against Washington. Then you had Oregon and Texas and Michigan all the way through in the playoff race. 88.6 coverage grade across those 5 games, couple of interceptions and 8 pass breakups that led the country in that stretch. He is just one of these guys. I think a little bit about a L'Jarius Sneed, where it's like maybe the grading doesn't, you're not going to see him with a 95 grade because, first of all, I believe he was the 5th most targeted corner in the country. The ball's coming his way, and he's going to find it. And sometimes there's some high risk, high reward to it, but he's productive when it matters most. I absolutely love watching him. He's physical in coverage. He gets his hands on the football. He's feisty as all hell. He's just one of those corners that brings that alpha presence to your secondary.
He absolutely does, man. And we'll talk about this in the weaknesses, but he's not that big, honestly, and you can't really tell because of how feisty he is, man. And you mentioned the forced incompletions, man. Led the nation in forced incompletions. Most of them came in single coverage as well. And this is not only a one-year wonder for Jabbar Muhammad. He was a really, really good player at Oklahoma State before that as well. In 2022, 78.1 coverage grade. 2021 had a 72.2 overall grade too. He plays better in the run game than you'd expect for a player of his size. He's 70.9 run defense grade last year as well. He just, man, the mentality with him is like, I think it's his biggest superpower is just the mentality, honestly. Whereas some guys have the athleticism and all that, but I think his mentality is awesome, dude. I love, this is just one of those guys that coaches are going to fall in love with. I think in interviews, watching his tape is like, I want that guy on my football team because of the way he plays, man, is fantastic. But what are the weaknesses, Dalton? Why is Jabbar Muhammad not a top 5 corner in the country for us?
Yeah, I think despite the mentality, and it's great. He is physical in coverage, like into the routes and at catch points, but I don't think he's the best tackler in the world. I think it was somewhere around 13 missed tackles last year. It was a career high missed tackle rate from his previous years at Oklahoma State. So I think his frame is going to be a thing, right? Like he's definitely more of a cover corner than a big time tackler, run support corner. And I think the other thing you have is he's not going to be that like Sauce Gardner shutdown guy that you just don't target. Like teams are going to keep challenging him because of his size, and he might have very good speed, but not elite speed. Like he doesn't have A+ traits. He's got an A+ mentality. He's an absolute dog. But I think the ceiling is going to come where like if a team values the ball production, then spectacular. You're going to think he's the number 1 corner. And if you're one who values more like traits and athleticism, his PFF gas score is only a 57.7 last year, then you might lean away from him or call him like a CB2 or something like that. But it's kind of goes with his character that he has to give all that effort and all of that feistiness, where the traits and especially the size, to me, the first thing that sticks out to me is he's just not the best tackler in the world.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And I think, there are some guys who are super athletes and play with a feisty mentality. That's what makes them superstars. He's not a super athlete, though, which is why he's still a really good corner because of that mentality. But like I said, he's a 58th percentile athlete last year, 65th percentile, and 75th percentile the years before that. Just above average. He's an above average athlete. He's not a bad athlete by any stretch or measure, but he's an above average athlete, nothing special. And then the size, too, man. He's 5'10", 183, not the biggest in the world either. And that shows up, like I said, sometimes as a tackler and sometimes in press coverage too. I noticed that a couple times. And in zone coverage, I think could be improved too. He's another guy we talked about for Denzel Burke, who's really, really good in single coverage and man coverage. But as a zone corner, there's still stuff to be worked on, I think, with Jabbar Muhammad. That goes into being a better tackler too in zone coverage, honestly, too. So still a really good player, still the best corner that we had in the transfer portal this offseason, going from Washington over to Oregon now with the Ducks really loading up for a potential national title run.